Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and this is Joseph.
Hi, guys.
And this is the Nerd Morning Show, a place where we celebrate nerd culture by talking about books, video games, comics, movies, and more. And today we're diving in to Star Wars Visions, which is 9 episodes of anime that's done to tell Star Wars stories. And I think these are really interesting, and we have a lot to talk about and pick apart with these stories. So we're gonna dive right into it.
I had a lot of fun watching them. Yeah, I've watched enough anime to have the feel for it,
Hmm.
but it's not something that I've invested a whole lot into.
Yeah.
So this was a lot of fun for that part of the
Hmm.
artistic experience. The storytelling is not too dissimilar from what we'd kind of expect for a Star Wars story, which was
Sure.
nice because it helped it feel familiar. We can understand, okay, Star Wars universe. We've got the Jedi, we've got the Sith, we've got the red lightsabers and all the other colors, and we've
Yeah.
got these types of concepts were all really familiar,
Hmm.
so it wasn't hard to follow along in any degree of what was going on with it.
Yeah.
So
I think this is really cool because um, Star Wars is a huge franchise.
oh
It's
yeah.
it's tremendous, but there's a lot of people who haven't really dived into it and explored it, but that really love anime, right?
Sure. Right.
And this is like a really good entry point for someone who loves anime to maybe dip their feet and get a little bit into what Star Wars is and go,
Yeah.
hey, this is interesting. This world's kind of cool. Let's explore it. And vice
Uh-huh.
versa. There's a lot of people who don't watch anime. Anime
Right.
is now growing and it's becoming huge worldwide, not just in Japan.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of Star Wars fans who just haven't experienced that. And
Sure.
they've got an opportunity to experience that and have this as a really interesting bridge. And I think
Right.
that that's really cool.
Yeah, and many of the Americans who have gotten into anime, I would hazard to say the majority of them got in through like Pokemon,
Sure.
Naruto, things like that,
Yeah.
that really have more of that American feel to them.
Hmm.
And some of the visions kind of have that same kind of in between style, but
Yeah.
some of them are way far into the more traditional anime style. And
Hmm.
personally, I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
Um,
it's a good bridge both
yeah.
ways.
And
Yeah.
these are these companies that went and did these episodes are huge. They are some of the biggest and most successful anime houses that are out there. And they've also done different partnerships with other American properties before.
Right. Yep.
The production house right now, I can't remember the name of them, but the ones that did the duel, the first episode, was
Yep.
the ones who did the Batman Ninja
Ah.
animated
Uh-huh.
series or animated movie. And
Okay.
so like there's these companies that have rubbed shoulders with American properties before and
Mhm.
have explored this, I don't know, the symbiosis that could exist.
Uh-huh.
And these are also ones that are like, they're big. They've done a lot of really big projects in the past, and it's cool to see how they've been able to interact and link together.
Right. Right. and for Disney to take the Star Wars name
Hmm.
and say, "Here, just give us something cool in the
Yeah.
anime style. Go." And from what I understand, that's mostly what they did. They
Yeah.
just like, "Okay, yeah, here you go. Here's your permission. Do it."
Yeah.
And
Um,
that's it. So,
Ultimately, we're gonna write all of these off
yep,
as not canon, right?
right.
They're officially
They're
not
not
canon.
not part
Um,
of the official universe, but
yeah, but also like, let's be real. Star Wars has an immense and rich unofficial library.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And if you talk to big producers of the movies, if you even talk to George Lucas, like people like that, they will
Oh,
say like all of those aren't canon.
yeah.
They may have had in the past like official continuation stamped on them, but really like
Yeah.
the movies, the shows, those were officially stamped 100% like official, and everything else
Yeah.
uh is somewhere in that spectrum, but
Yeah. When
on that
Disney took
that side.
over, it
Uh-huh.
was floop, which, that's kind of cool. One thing I like that Lucas did in the 80s and 90s with
Hmm.
the book series, he did say, as you write these, if you kill off this character in this point in the timeline, they have to still be dead later.
Over
He
here.
wanted a little bit of unity, even though he
Sure.
wasn't necessarily making it all canon.
Yeah.
He wanted some sort of continuity with it,
Hmm.
which I thought was great because that's exactly when I was reading all of those books.
Yeah. Which are also
And
they're great books.
they're
Like
excellent
them not being
stories.
officially canon
Hmm.
isn't a downplay, right? These aren't
No,
officially canon, and
right?
they're
And
awesome.
they're
And
great
yes,
stories. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And if you really want to like dive into that, you're a big Star Wars fan, like the I don't know, the extended Legends
Extended interview
universe
universe,
is
definitely. Uh-huh.
is a worthwhile thing to explore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they are kind of reaching into that universe.
Hmm.
We had Grand Admiral Thrawn
Hmm.
mentioned in The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
so, which is canon, as I'm
Hmm.
understanding it. It's
Hmm.
part of
Hmm.
their
Yep. Yep.
main
Clone
stuff.
Wars and some of those animated
So
things are, and they might
they're
come from
they're reaching
different
into
areas.
it.
Yeah.
So, and that makes it fun too, because then you can kind of get to know that character
Hmm.
before it becomes official. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So overall, then, as a Star Wars fan, Joseph, you've been a Star Wars fan pretty much your entire life. I have as
Yeah.
well, but I'm gonna say like my Star Wars fandom has kind of rid on your coattails. For those who don't know, we are brothers. Grew up obviously together then, and I remember going, oh man, Joseph likes Star Wars, so Star Wars is cool because my older brother is super cool, and resonating things from that way. Um, for you, as long time Star Wars fan, what do you think? Star Wars Visions.
Very fun. Very, very fun way to take the main concepts of the Force, the Jedi, and their traditional arch enemies, the Sith, and just putting them into little teeny stories that, even though they're not fully officially canon, may
Hmm.
well have happened anyways,
Yeah.
because they're not trying to tie into the main Skywalker timeline.
No.
They're completely different characters. They have some of them fit in. You can see where they'd fit into that main timeline,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
they
If
don't
they got
necessarily.
stormtroopers, then you're like, okay, that's got to be part of this Imperial
Right.
era.
Uh,
But other than that, yeah.
right. There's some of that. We see Jabba once. We see Boba Fett. We've
Hmm.
got some of those tie-ins, but most of them could have happened anciently. Some of them feel like they could happen in the future, way
Hmm.
past the Skywalker timeline,
Hmm.
and they just involve either this Jedi or this group who are interacting with the Force in some way,
Yeah.
and they're they could be like that. They totally feel like it would be a this Jedi having this adventure type story.
Yeah.
Except the exception is probably my favorite too, the first episode, Duel.
Hmm.
The it plays on a contrast from Western storytelling, the medieval knight, Lone Ranger type
Hmm.
scenario where he's the hero and he's doing good and
Yeah.
slaying the dragon. It plays a little bit on that contrast with the idea of the Ronin from
Hmm.
Japanese culture,
Yeah.
which was like super bad. I mean, not like worst evil bad, but he was considered to not be a man of honor. Even though he might go around and do the Lone Ranger thing and stop
Hmm.
bad guys,
Hmm.
he he was not considered to be a man of honor. And so the Sith that comes into the town and is fighting and everything,
Yeah.
and then this guy comes in, we're like, yay, Lone Ranger, go for it. And then red lightsaber,
You were like,
like,
wait a second. Wait a second.
right? So it's very interesting. He very much is playing on that Ronin feel. And if any of you watching or listening can give us a little bit more insight, because I understand the concept, but I am not an ancient Japan history scholar. So
Yeah.
I'd love to learn more. But we've got basically these two not great, not fully honorable people fighting, and one, he's protecting the town, but
Hmm.
he's also got kind of his own agenda, as we
Yeah.
see, especially when he opens up his robe and he's got this huge lit
Like
line
collection of red
of
kyber
red
crystals.
crystals
Yeah.
that you're like, so it
He's
his
hunting other
backstory,
Sith. Yeah.
yeah, his backstory would probably be super fascinating.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's kind of my main feeling for the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me. And then, as we dive into the other episodes, there are other pieces too, but that one was my favorite for that reason. So,
Yeah. Well, for you, are there any? I guess I'll talk about my overall. I'm like, yes, slam dunk. This was awesome. I make as well. Like, I was kind of like defaulting a lot of that like fandom towards you, but like I spent countless of hours with those toy plastic lightsabers in the backyard, meeting my little brother and playing with my various friends, like imagining to open up the automatic doors at supermarkets with the force as a child, like sticking out your hand and the doors opening and you're like, I use the force. Like those types of things were very pervasive in my child brain, right?
right.
Not that I don't do that stuff now all the time still, but
Who doesn't? I mean,
uh
honestly.
like I love Star Wars. I think that the universe is really expansive and cool and has the potential really to um uh to be very inclusive because the universe is humongous, and a lot of like the movies and things like that really like focuses around like again like the Skywalker line.
uh,
But like this universe is huge and there's so many stories that can go along and involve into this. And I don't know, I'm just like more the merrier, yay, let's do it, this is awesome. That's kind of a lot of my
right?
feelings
Yeah.
towards it. And I think some of these were really fun, and they were some of them very like soft and playful.
Yeah.
Tattooing Rhapsody, the second episode, like this was a a kids show, that
Oh,
was
totally.
totally a young childlike playful thing, and all of these ultimately were a PG rating, but some of them are
Yeah.
pushing the boundary this way and some of them pushing the boundary that way.
Yeah.
And with like the duel, as you mentioned, like that one to me like straight up epic. I absolutely loved
Right.
that. It was really, really cool. Definitely darker, more gritty, all of that. And I had a lot of fun with the expanse that this showcased, particularly
Mhm.
as for your 7-year-old, they might really like the 2B1
Uh-huh.
robot character, and other ones, your 10-year-old maybe is going to like the twins a little bit better. And then you might be sitting back going like the duel, that's where I'm comfortable, that's where I love.
Right.
And so it really
Yeah.
has something for everybody, and I love that they did that out of these 9 episodes.
Oh, it's so fun. And a good stretch, especially like we said earlier, if you're not watching anime very often, it's a good
Mhm.
feel for anime isn't necessarily one style.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. to play with out there.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. For you, was there a particular episode that you liked the most, that you thought resonated with you? Um,
With me personally,
yeah,
other than the duel, the Ninth Jedi story, I found to be a lot of fun.
yeah.
It wasn't very complex,
Hmm.
but the kind of the concept behind it, and we should say spoilers all over the place here,
Right. Yes, totally. Good
right?
note. I had that thought like a little while ago.
Yeah,
Spoilers, guys. Spoilers.
spoilers. But the Ninth Jedi, the one Jedi who's somehow become the leader of this either town or planet, can't really tell for sure, but
Yeah.
um, trying to call in other Jedi.
Hmm.
Um, and it seems like this is sometime down the future road somewhere
Yeah, that's kind
where,
of how I think about it.
yeah, the Jedi still kind of dispersed, maybe a few others other than Obi-Wan who were in hiding, passed on all of their learning and understanding, but they never had access to lightsabers. So they're
Yeah.
kind of coming in. This guy found a smith who was able to make lightsabers, and so they, trying to gather them together and bring back
Hmm.
the Jedi Order. But some Sith sneak their way in and try and put a kibosh on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was but mostly the coming of age story for
Hmm.
the Smith's daughter.
Yeah.
That part just really got me. I'm like, oh yeah, that let's go.
Right.
She's like, yeah, I'm starting to use the Force and stuff, and just that growing. You're like, oh, you can do it,
Yes,
right?
totally. Um,
So that one
yeah,
was just a lot of fun. I
and
enjoyed that one a lot.
inside of the expanded canon and also the exploration and evolution of how different ideas and systems work inside of Star Wars. Earlier designs and plans for lightsabers actually made it so you would change the color of a lightsaber, and they played with that idea there. They
Yeah.
had in
Uh-huh.
earlier designs, I think it's actually in one of the comic books for the Return of the Jedi story arc, when Darth Vader picks up the lightsaber from Luke, it would turn red in his hand. And this was an idea that
Okay.
was played with.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, it didn't happen. Um, Kyber crystals are a specific color, and that's just how it is
Right.
inside of the main comic, or the canon of Star Wars. But here they decided, let's play with this idea.
Yeah.
Let's have it mirror the internal intent of a person, which I think is a cool idea. I
Oh yeah.
I I think, could there be specialty kyber crystals that do such a thing? Sure, why not? Like, the universe
Let's
is really
play with
big.
it, right? Let's
Um
play with it. It'd be
and
kind of like the Ajas in Aes Sedai for the Wheel of
uh-huh.
Time,
Yeah.
right? Your internal intent would group you into those colors. So
Yeah,
it's
and
uh-huh.
I'm like, that works, that's fine.
Sure.
But I thought that was an interesting thing there, and something as an evidence to what's cool about Star Wars Visions is this is an idea, this is a concept, and they're like, we can play with it because we can. It's not canon, it's just a story. Let's
Right.
enjoy this as a story and do something interesting.
Yeah.
And The Ninth Jedi was a phenomenal story, one of my favorites. Honestly, I had several that I'm like, oh no, this is my new favorite. Oh no, no, this is my new favorite. Um, I think that my ultimate favorite is probably going to be the first episode, The Duel. I really love the Ronin Sith idea here,
Right.
and the
It's just
battle was
fascinating.
just too cool. Also, the Umbrella Blade, that the first Sith that we see
Just
as a Sith
uh-huh.
is awesome. What a great design! Something that I could see people going and saying, I now know what I'm going to do with my Star Wars cosplay next year. Like,
I
that's
we're gonna
awesome.
see that. We are. That's
Yeah.
just
And
yeah.
I don't know, I thought that was cool. The art style is something I really resonated with. It was just the overall, that was my favorite, but there were a lot of really powerful stories, some things I just like absolutely loved throughout here. So that was going to be ultimately, I think, my favorite.
It's a good one. Yes. So
Um,
jumping into the one that didn't quite hit the spot for me is going to
yeah.
be the twins.
Okay.
Um, I, that story just, it seemed like they tried to put some depth into it with the
Uh-huh.
history of the twins, and they were born for a purpose, and
Yeah.
it was there, but it totally missed, especially when they're out in the middle of space and not dying.
Uh-huh.
when
Right, which is something Star Wars has played with before.
you've played with it, but
Yeah.
they've explained it a little bit too,
Yeah.
and you can survive in the vacuum of space for a very short time.
Yeah. And it
But they're
honestly
out
isn't.
there
Yeah.
fighting and doing stuff. And I'm just like, the suspension of belief here, just too much.
Yep.
Just
Honestly,
just didn't
this was
land.
the one, and that is the reason, because I could not stop thinking about that through the entire story. I thought it was
Right,
really cool. It had some kind of like Luke and Leia vibes
right.
through the whole
It had
thing.
some a
And
good start.
I
Yeah,
was like, this has different parallels to the main story in a really amazing way. I thought it was so cool. I
hmm
still think it's really cool, but I could not think about them in the vacuum of space.
right.
And
Just
that was the big problem for me. And so
uh-huh.
I couldn't get beyond it. And so I couldn't fully enjoy that story. I
Right.
totally agree.
If they
Oh
would have
man.
just put a nimbus around them, so they're using the force to hold on to atmosphere.
Hmm.
I if they did just that, I probably
Hmm.
wouldn't have had a problem then,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
they just left it to, they're not dying. Go.
Yeah. The space means nothing here. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, but
Yeah. I don't. I'm with you. I think it had a lot of potential, that story too.
yeah.
And I just couldn't get past it. Other people are going to be like, "Oh, that didn't bother me a bit," and I got to enjoy a great story.
Yep.
And there are definitely mechanics of what space is that are completely ignored in the logic of Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
that to be acknowledged. Like
Uh-huh.
simply having laser blasts that sound and you can hear it, that just doesn't work. And
Right.
that's not real.
Nope.
That's completely fantasy.
Yep.
And so like I acknowledge that. But for me, the suspension can suspend that
Yeah.
and be okay. But I had a hard time getting past the
The
breathing,
full out
landing.
battle.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And having like selective gravity, like they'd float a little bit, then they could
Uh-huh.
land and be comfortable on a surface. And like
Right.
there's a
Yeah.
couple of those things that like I feel like if you did one or two of them, maybe I'd be like, man, okay, I'm cool. But there was
Yeah.
like a kind of like it's stacked up, and I don't know. Space is hard because it doesn't work like anything we're used
Right.
to. And how do you tell a story there um, the way you would, except
Right.
now it's in space? That's a Star
Yeah.
Wars challenge. And
It just
yeah.
is. Yep. So
Um, one that really threw me initially was Tatooine Rhapsody. Initially because it was so different than the
yeah.
duel. And
Right.
I was just like, wait a second,
It's quite
you
a
know,
jump.
it
It
was a
really
big jump.
was.
And so
Yeah.
I had to kind of settle myself in and go, okay, this is a little bit different.
hmm
Okay, now I'm good. It
Right.
actually has the lowest IMD rating, so this is probably the one that's going to be people's least favorite. Was Tatooine Rhapsody?
Which is kind of
Um,
sad, because a lot of people are probably getting that rating for the
uh-huh.
same reason. It's
Yes,
just that contrast
yes,
of
because
which one came right before it.
yeah,
Whereas if you played it in different order, it might not have that same rating, right?
right.
So yeah.
Um, Interestingly, the Ninth Jedi is the highest rated on IMDb at a 8.7 right now.
Hmm.
There's still, I bet, going to be more ratings coming in.
Oh sure. Yeah.
These ratings right now are based off of the first several thousand of people
Yeah.
who went and made votes. But yeah, Tatooine Rhapsody was cool. We got to see Jabba the Hutt here. We got to see Boba Fett. I liked how the goal was we're kids in a band and we want to play music. And I'm a young Padawan, but I'm here to play music now because the world's changed.
Yeah,
And
everyone I know has been killed.
yeah,
I shouldn't be a Jedi anymore. That's just going to be bad.
mhm,
That opening scene where you can tell he's just broken,
yeah,
I thought that was done so well,
yeah,
right? And then he's picked up by a friend who just has this dream of making music, and you can tell
mhm,
he's absorbed into that world and he loves it now.
yeah.
I thought that was done so well.
Yeah, and also like as and in the male paradigm of stories inside of younger animes, like I have talked about this before, but like Naruto, and several other characters in that same grouping,
Hmm.
their main goal is to do whatever their thing is in order to make friends
Right.
and have
Uh-huh.
camaraderie there. And so this kind of felt very in line with some of those story trope elements that
Right.
are very common in the genre.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I appreciate this for that way. And I'm here making connections
Right.
and seeing
Yeah.
that this is cool that way. Overall, yeah, I thought that was pretty good. We've talked about the twins, um, and kind of our thoughts there. I again like
Hmm.
interesting concepts they played with episode 4, The Village Bride. A Jedi on the run is here, and we see this like remote village, and they have this interesting interaction with the Force. Overall,
Hmm.
Joseph, what were your thoughts of that one?
Uh, it took me a little while to get into it,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of because nothing was really happening. It was
Yeah.
like, we're going to build this piece and we're going to build this piece and we're going to build this piece. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of foundation at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So then at the end, when you kind of understand what's going on and why um, the naturalist uh, guy,
Like, yeah,
he's kind of pointing the young girl in this direction, when we kind of understand why, and then, oh, she's a Jedi.
yeah.
Got it. Right. All the foundation was all there. A little bit slower to get into it,
Mm-hmm.
but that style of storytelling works better in a written form, I find,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's a good writer who can maintain that interest. It's not all world building or just all foundational. You've got a little bit of building that goes
Mm-hmm.
along in written form. I like that a whole lot better than in
Yeah,
video form,
yeah.
personally. But once we got there at the end, she took off her mask. You could see there was a scar. There's something about her former master. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
he gave her the scar. There,
Yeah.
there's enough unsaid there that it really adds interest. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, I would like to see her again. It
Yes.
was what my ending feeling was. This little village and stuff, kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's all good, but I want to see her again.
Yeah.
I would love to get more stories with that young Jedi.
Yeah.
That was my ending feeling.
That's cool. Honestly, I would love to see several of these saying, okay, this was cool. Now let's do a 9 episode series with this character. You kind
Yeah.
of like almost like these were
Uh-huh.
like tryouts, right? And you got like,
Right.
okay, you pass, go and do your thing. Yeah, that I would love that. I think that'd be great. I would
Right.
enjoy more of several of these characters.
Hmm.
Um, I thought like similar things, like the pacing was a little bit slower at the beginning, but the music of this episode I resonated with a lot. There
It
was
was
the
nice.
like the bridal sequence, and I wasn't even sure like, is this some type of forced ceremony, or is this a wedding ceremony, or is this
Right.
like setting up for a sacrifice thing? Like they're talking about all these things
Yeah.
all at
It
once.
was. Uh-huh.
And so I'm like here trying to piece it together, but then they had this like awesome music that I was just like, oh, this feels like special
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
And that worked really great for that. And I was one of the things that I really, really noticed. And also just kind of a different approach to how people would interact with the Force, right? It was
Yeah.
part of nature, which is the Force, right? That's
Mhm.
a big part of how it works. And they resonated with the Force in a different way. And I thought that was great because there are people in the Star Wars universe, even in canon, that use the Force different than just the way that the Jedi do. My first example of that is where Darth Maul comes from. He comes from a planet of matriarchs, and the matriarchs are the ones who are essentially like the Force users, and they're witches, and they do like more quote unquote magic than what the Jedi do. And that's a very different approach of how they utilize and capture the Force. And here we also saw these people who had a different type of relationship to it. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, totally.
We had hit a little bit on the Ninth Jedi already. Overall, again, I really like that one.
It's a fun
There's
story.
so
Really
much potential.
well done story.
Like we could see more of this the daughter of the lightsaber smith, going off on her journey, and I would be all for it. I think that would be cool. 2B1 or TOB1 or Toby, which was really fun and clever. This one I think also kind of pushed my boundaries of belief and disbelief, mostly because of the emotional spectrum that this robot had, which is unique to how the rest of Star Wars thinks about their robots.
Right? It didn't fit with the Star Wars droid.
Yeah.
Which could have still worked, but they didn't give any explanation as to why this one is different.
Yeah. And they're like, we're just not going to worry about it. We're going to move forward. Yep. And that's fine. Totally okay. Like we've had very robotic, human-like systems in other ways in different stories.
Right. You just need that explanation as to why.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking things that are like deep in anime, Alita Battle Angel, right? Like it's essentially
although she's more of a cyborg.
Yeah, and that's like a thing. I'm like, there is an explanation of a robotic person where like the soul or mind of a human is put in there. Avatar, with the blue people, not the Airbender this time, right?
Yes.
That one again, like you're inserting somebody's consciousness soul into that. Right. I could see here like a soul being put into a robotic body, and it was a child soul, and it's growing up inside of as a robot. Like there's possibilities there. They just choose not to talk about it at all. So and I think what's interesting here as well is Toby is somewhat of a Force user, and I had a hard time being able to say a robot could command the Force. Right. And so those are the things that I thought of was what are the possibilities that could justify this? I was okay to believe in it, but I had to be able to step back and pause my in order to be able to
you have to say, okay, this is for like your 6-year-old. Yeah. Who's not going to worry about that. They're just going to relate to the childlike character.
Yeah. Perfect.
You do that, you're good.
Yeah.
Go.
Yep. And here my adult brain is going, okay, so here's all of these deep psychological sci-fis that can potentially justify this. But honestly, like my headcanon of this as a kind of like a Battle Angel Alita-esque experience where this is a young baby that was inserted here, was maybe that Jedi's child or something. Right. And now all of a sudden this got dark and deep. And I think that that's a cool way to imagine or think about it, even though like there's none of that here.
None of that is there, right? It's true. So.
But honestly, very fun, very playful. As you said, this is the story for your younger child. Like you got your 5-year-old who you want to watch a Star Wars thing with, and they can see this very kind of like Big Hero 6 white,
Right.
lovable
Yeah.
robot thing,
It's your softer, younger one.
that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Uh-huh.
And perfect. Good. I'm glad it exists. And it was this my favorite? No, it wasn't. But was it wonderful? It was wonderful. So I'm glad it was there. Wait, definite shift on that next one.
Yes. The
Definite
Elder
shift.
is reaching back closer to the Ninth Jedi and the duel in the type of story,
Yeah.
the artistic style. This one is one that I feel would be like more ancient
Yeah.
in the timeline.
Yeah.
Just a Jedi and his Padawan out trying to do good in the galaxy, and then they run into some disturbance in the Force. Go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Elder here, the Sith, he's awesome. He's scary and cool. And
they did a good job with him.
I loved that. Also, I can totally see this like art style that they use in other things, and I thought that was really fun. Also, I thought was interesting is if I remember correctly, there were times when the color was a little less dynamic, and there were times when it was full color. And I'm trying to was going through and going, okay, what is this trying to symbolize here? Is this connection of the Force? Is it that they want to we'll make sure the red in the lightsaber is really dynamic and everything else is muted? I don't know. They're playing with the color spectrum throughout it, and I was like, that's just, I don't know, it caught my eye. It was interesting. Similar with with the duel, it's a black and white story except for the red lightsabers.
Which
and
is a really fun artistic style.
Yeah, I was just
really
that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, yeah, it was the story of Padawan and his Jedi, and their first big fight for this Padawan. And also, you kind of got him. He was like this headstrong, I'll just go on adventures. I can conquer the world. And this was his moment where he's like, oh shoot, I gotta grow up because this is real. Right? This isn't just play.
Yeah.
And that was a big mental shift for him as a character, and I thought that was great.
It was an interesting tie-in to Clone Wars Anakin, right? Just kind of that headstrong, I know what's going on, let's go do it. Yeah, it was a little bit of a tie-in to that type of story. The only thing the only criticism I have against this is the Padawan lived. Right? When the Sith Elder, blocked with one saber and sliced with the other, I kind of expected him to fall in half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not falling in half, I can get that, but being gutted by a lightsaber.
Yeah, he kind of stands up after this and say, oh, we healed your wounds. They tried to reason it out in the story. They wanted this to be his big teaching moment. And I get how the possibility of the Elder, the Sith, choosing to let him live as bait in order to get his real prize, which was the Jedi. I get that.
But they don't say it. They don't give any clip to it. He's not, there's no condescending quip or anything being just to let us know that he intended to not kill you. Now you will see what a real fight is. Anything.
Yeah, totally. I had the exact same struggle here.
Because a complete slice across the gut with a regular sword, you've got 30 seconds. You're
gone.
It's not good.
Yeah.
And anyway, that was just where that broke for me a little bit. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the story itself.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that was a moment where I'm like, I don't know if this makes sense. And that is, I don't know. It's a good thing to think about. I don't know. Overall, like it was a great story. I had fun. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm with you. Okay, so Lop and Ocho, episode 8. I did not think that I was gonna love this one. I saw the anthropomorphic rabbit, and I'm like, okay, this is maybe not gonna be my thing. There are a lot of different aliens out there, and one could totally look like this.
Right.
That's fine. But
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I had this initial going, like, I don't know. This might not be my particular story. This story was fantastic. I
I
was
enjoyed
blown
it.
away.
It made me think very strongly of Ruby.
Okay.
I just it
Yeah.
had that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
like season 3 of Ruby, um, just where we see the faunus more and
Okay.
such.
Okay.
It at least that's how I related to it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah. I
Um,
can totally see where you're coming from.
so, but the concept of an adoption into the family,
Mm-hmm.
there's some dissonance between the different family members on empire's good, empire's bad. How
Yeah.
are we going to work with this? The concept of inheritance and
Mm-hmm.
things. It was just
Which,
told really, really well. It
yeah.
flowed so nicely, and
And
it
I,
was
as
there were no
a,
points where I was like, ugh, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
as someone who knows a tiny bit of Japanese culture, is adoptions are a big part of how you pass on your name and your heritage. And that's still done today through adoptions through like big corporations where they inherit that as an heir to them who's not somebody who's actually born into the family, but they are adopted and inherit that in order to be able to continue the name and the line and the like uh the legend of the family, right? I don't know how to say that right way.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of, I think it's like I was reading something, there were like 92% of adoptions are male adoptions, and a primary reason for that inside of Japan is for the inheritance of the name and pushing that on, and having that the family continue in that way. And
Interesting.
um I don't know tons about all of that. Again, I'm a very outsider, non-knowledgeable person here, but I could see the connections here of this, this young girl Lop receiving the inheritance of the family's duty with the lightsaber and everything. Like they had that as a big special moment, and I can see how
Yeah.
there could be a parallel here inside of the Japanese culture, which I just don't fully understand because I'm not of that culture, but that there's some parallelism to maybe stories or other type of elements inside of that culture.
Hmm.
But this was a really great story in the fact that it was this, like we see the empire here, we see how the people could ultimately choose to join up with the empire in order to preserve their homeland, preserve their whatever, and kind of
Uh-huh.
like making the deal with the devil kind of a thing.
Yep.
And how someone could logically choose that, and then how others could, in the exact same family, exact same situation even, have a different conclusion, fight against them, resist that, and how that could make reasonable sense as well. And I liked that they did that here because this is something that is obviously an undertone of things that are dealt with throughout the entire universe inside of the Star Wars world.
Right.
And this could very well be what we have there.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a simple story, but it gives you little ideas of what does the Empire do with all of these worlds.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And I don't know, the little robot on the shoulder that Lop has, or that pretty much was like a camera,
Uh-huh.
was an adorable little robot. And I think that was also one of the things, and we haven't really mentioned too much, but they had similar but different robots all over in this series.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. This robot reminds me of the latest big Star Wars movie, the one that
The
they've
Force
had.
Awakens.
not movie, the video game that they had with it was essentially barely post Empire, or it was setting up the stuff. It was the Star Wars Jedi. Let me think. The Jedi Fallen Order game, and
Okay.
he's got that little robot on his shoulder the whole time, and I was like, this is paralleling
Okay.
that.
Kind of
And I was like,
pulling that idea.
that was kind of cool to me to kind of get the connection to that. I don't know. Overall, Wap and Ocho was way better than I expected. It's actually probably in my top. It's in the top half for me. As I'm looking through it, I'm like, oh, but I like that one. Oh, but I like that one. Oh, but I like that one. And that's my struggle on most things when I talk
Right?
about things.
Can you pick a favorite?
As I'm a liker. I like things, and it makes me a bad critic, but it's it's okay. Okay. The last story on this grouping, episode 9. I don't know if I can pronounce this the right way. Akariki? Akari?
Something like that, Archery. But on this one, I honestly I haven't watched it yet, so I'm gonna have to leave it to you.
Oh, this is when you haven't got to. Oh
Right.
no. All right, so I'm gonna just read the story
The
bio for this then. So a Jedi returns to his forbidden love to help defend her kingdom from a Sith-like shogun. That's its setup here. And it was fun. It was good. I kind of was like, okay, they started off with a really big hitter, right? People are going to be talking about the duel when they talk about this. They're always going to be talking about that one.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so they're going to have a heavy hitter at the end. And I think they did it. I think they did a really good job. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you explore the Jedi. You got all of those similar type of elements here, and they had a different animation style here than they had in the other ones. Very anime still, obviously, but then with this, you kind of also saw how like you had an exploration on the Sith and a little bit more, and you could see, oh man, like it has this choice that this Jedi has to make, that could be compromising to how a Jedi chooses or acts, and that was a cool moment to be able to explore.
I'm excited to finish it because most of the time, all through the main timeline, Jedi are encouraged away from personal relationships. So I could see how that would be an interesting setup and story.
Yeah. And I don't know, you get to see the power of the Sith. You have this desperate Jedi who's going through that. They had also something that you get in a lot of anime style stuff. It's kind of like these two like goof off characters here that are helping on this like journey, and they're singing and they're joking around, and they're like this backdrop characters, but they were just really fun. Oh man, spoilers here for this. Like I'm trying to avoid to not hit you with, which I'm like, we didn't give this due justice for anyone else. We said spoilers at the beginning.
Yep, go for it.
But oh my goodness, I don't know, it's such a transformation here in this. You have a moment here that parallels like the choice that like Anakin makes, and I'm like, oh, very interesting to see. And like sometimes you get like, I don't know, like the origin of the Sith. How do they come? How do people make this type of a decision? What does all that like come together? And I don't know. It was great. It was really great. A good finish to the story. A pretty short one at 13 minutes. All of these were like between, 10 to 20 minutes,
Yeah.
somewhere inside of that range. So these were all short stories, and I don't know, they were great. They were
I
great fun.
enjoyed it. Yeah, whether you love them all or you hate them all or you only like one or two, they're
Uh-huh.
still fun. They're
Yes.
just fun, entertaining stories. If you have any idea of the Star Wars universe at all, you can
Hmm.
jump in and enjoy them. And,
Totally.
you can enjoy them and leave them and you're done. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I I don't know. I tremendously enjoyed them. As someone who is a big anime fan, I'm just like, oh, it really resonated with that side. I'm a big Star Wars fan, really resonated with that side as well. And yeah, like I'm ready for them to do more. I want a season 2 of this. It can be the
Right?
exact same thing, just
Sure.
a bunch of side different stories that don't really connect to anything.
Yep.
They're just like, we love Star Wars. Let's celebrate Star Wars.
Right.
Because
Let's
that's
have
what it
some
to
fun.
me was.
Yeah.
This was a celebration of just loving this genre, this story, this universe. And
Yep.
I don't know. I was there for it. I thought it was great. And I had a lot of fun. Well, any additional notes or thoughts, Joseph, before we wrap up?
Don't judge it because it's anime and you don't like anime, because the stories are really well done. They
Yeah.
really are. There are a few little parts where we had some suspension of belief, but
Yeah.
otherwise, they're just fun stories. Just sit down and enjoy and
Yeah.
see for yourself.
And there are people who are like, oh, but it's Japanese and whatever, and Star Wars is an American ideal story and whatever. I'm like, no, it's actually not. If you
Yeah.
listen to George Lucas, he's like, Jedi are samurai.
Yeah.
Like, this is what he based them off of. This was
Totally.
totally part of how he was doing that and had that exploration. Other types of things, there's a tremendous amount of parallels, even just simply like the Jedi robes and having the way that they kind of like layer up in the front. Like, that's
Uh huh.
a very traditional look in a side of
Yes.
like the Japanese wardrobe.
Yep.
Like, there's different things like that. Like, no, this actually has always been heavily influenced by the Japanese culture. So if that's a hang up for you, one, get over yourself, and two, get over yourself. Like, this was to me beautiful. It was amazing, a really cool exploration. I loved the idea though of seeing this being told by a different culture as well, and I was fantastic, and I'm so happy that it's here, and I want more of it. So that's my take. Um, so yeah, I was just like, in the back of my head, is like, I should actually mention Star Wars was totally influenced
Oh,
by Japanese
definitely.
culture.
Yeah.
That's a big factor in here as well. All right, guys, we have run out of time. Thank you, Joseph, so much for your thoughts and contributions here. If you guys had a favorite episode, something you loved, something you hated, something all in between, let us know. Put your thoughts about this series in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, you can find more Nerd Morning content easily found at nerdmorning.com/links for all the different places. Also at Nerd Morning at pretty much any place. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all over at Nerd Morning. It's easy place to access to find more information and more content like this. Thank you all again for joining in on our discussion, and we will talk to you guys another time on another discussion video like this. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you all then.